So here's why cash flow is the least important factor to consider when buying your next rental deal. Hey, how's it going everybody? It's Justin Artist and we're checking in again today. So today I want to talk about cash flow, and like we mentioned in previous videos, cash flow is the excess money that's left over after you receive the rent and all the expenses are paid. So don't get me wrong, cash flow is great. That's putting tax-free money into your pocket every month. And like we said, the typical household cash flows between $200 to $500 a month. So that's potential to build up a lot of wealth. But even considering that, this is why cash flow is still the least important factor to consider when you're buying your next real estate deal. So the first point that I want to talk about is the misconception that once you close on your deal, your cash flow only goes up with appreciation and as rent prices go up. People assume this because they have a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, but with this, your principal and your interest definitely stay the same, but you have the taxes and the insurance which change annually. Typically, most people have a escrow on their mortgage where the mortgage company collects money from you every month to then pay the taxes and the insurance at the end of the year on your behalf. The problem is they assume that the amount that's going to be paid for the new year is the amount that was paid from the previous year. But typically, as we all know, taxes and insurance go up a little bit every year. So what ends up happening at the end of the year is whenever the mortgage company goes to pay the taxes, the county for the taxes, and the insurance company, your escrow balance is in a shortage because you don't have the minimum required amount in your escrow balance. So what ends up happening is your payment has to go up, one, to account for the new higher taxes and insurance, and then two, to make up for that minimum balance so you can get back to your right amount in your escrow. So the problem with that is your monthly payment goes up, and then that affects your cash flow, and as your cash flow comes down, that then affects your ROI that you had when you underwrote your deal, so now the deal might not be as good. So you can increase the rent to account for this, which is fine, but then you run the risk of losing a tenant, which can suck, especially if that tenant was a good tenant that paid on time and took good care of the property. The second reason is the relative values of money to be made and the time it takes to make that money. So let's assume you bought this property and it cash flows $500 a month, and let's also assume that it's gonna stay constant over 5 years. So we're assuming no vacancies, no unexpected repairs, and no mortgage increases through the escrow like we were just previously talking about. But let's also assume that when you bought this house, it was at a discount from a distressed seller and the home needed a little bit of work. So you bought the home, let's say $200,000, and let's say you put $75,000 of work into the home, and now the home is worth $350,000. So in that case, you created $75,000 in equity in the course of the 3 to 4 months that it took to renovate the home, versus the cash flow where you're making $30,000 over the course of 5 years from the actual cash flow itself. So you can see the relative values of money is much better through appreciation. Alright guys, so that wraps up what I wanted to talk about today. Whenever I personally purchase a rental property, I'm looking at which property can I add the most value to and create enough equity that we can then leverage in the future, which is what I want to talk about in our next video with appreciation. The cash flow is just the cherry on the top and a byproduct of purchasing a good real estate deal.